Hello, and welcome to Khyber Shards, a 5th edition actual play show set in the Eberron campaign world. I'm Philip.
I'm RA.
Reluctantly.
Yeah,
always reluctantly. And welcome to another Friday episode. We're going to be taking some questions from our listeners and viewers about Esri and the most recent episodes. And then I have a couple of thoughts, but a good place to start is we've got some questions from Richard that are from back when I did the Chapter 1 recap. He had some sort of summary questions for the gang. So Richard wanted to know, what is, so far, RA's most enjoyable moment?
Oof. Man, I don't know. I don't know if I categorize things like that. I don't know if I remember things like that. What are the other parts of this question? Because it's
Sure.
like three things, right?
Most enjoyable, most surprising, and funniest, as well as most afraid for your character's life.
Okay, in that sense, then I think the most enjoyable part of the whole thing was the Donabella encounter initially, as stressful as that was in character and how that sort of bled over out of character. Like I spent a lot of time thinking about that night. It was such an impactful thing that came out of nowhere. No one, I think, was expecting that amount of different reactions and like polarizing reactions all at once that early. Like, and it's carried through. It defined, I mean,
If everyone would please silence your phones.
Excuse me. It very much defined the tone for Chapter 1. Like it really sort of gave all the characters their big starting direction, I think. Stuff like that is unplannable. Yeah. And that was very interesting, at least. I mean, enjoyable in the role playing sense, not necessarily the this is fun right now sense.
Right. Yeah.
There's a lot of that in role playing it's like real life in that way. So much that's stressful becomes a good story later. It just happens a little faster in RPG, right? Like it is actually stressful a lot of the times at that moment.
Yeah.
And not enjoyable, but it quickly becomes story and
once
becomes enjoyable in hindsight.
Once you have a moment where you take off the character, it becomes, that was crazy. We also had most surprising and funniest.
Most surprising. So the surprising one is akin to that. And again, it's not necessarily a moment, I suppose. Well, actually, the most surprising individual moment was Esri's mark growing. Because that was completely surprising, because that was one of those things, like, in the moment I did not realize what you were doing. Usually I think I do. Usually I see things coming to an extent. I was just like, what is happening? Where is he going with this? Oh, right. That's the thing that can happen. I forgot about that. So that was very surprising. I think the thing that surprised me most as a player, though, it has been it is a little surprising to me that, at least from my perspective, Esri ends up being the most psychologically damaged of the characters. Certainly I built him with a decent amount of trauma. I didn't expect him to necessarily be so what's the opposite of galvanizing?
Divisive?
divisive in the group. And maybe it wouldn't have happened. Really, the Donabella thing was a perfect storm for that, in that so much else, so many other conflicts could have been resolved and were resolved in much lesser ways. It's just the very strong difference of view of family, really, between Ari and Esri, that made that so strong. But it was still a little surprising. Like, in my head, Esri is definitely not. I think I've said this before. He's a lot more chill than he's been in play. Like in my head, I see him almost like a stoner. Like he's just like going along and he's growing his plants, man, and it's all good. We eat some mushrooms. We eat some bacon, whatever. And he's just been really high strung and trying to hold it together.
Yeah.
So most afraid for his life.
Yeah. Oh, I haven't given Esri a lot of opportunities to just have a day where things go as he intends them to.
Sure. Well, and that's not exactly a compelling story. It just, it was just the acceleration that was surprising. Most afraid for his life. I mean, I don't know that I have been. Esri's never been in real.
I don't think Esri has gone
bad danger. No. And I've always had a healing spell available. So I've never really been afraid for him, but the most dangerous was definitely the Tommel alley encounter. That was the one where I think that was the only one where there was like a real possibility of someone dying so far in terms of how things went. I mean, other encounters, surely the possibility was there, but they didn't go in that way. I know the party seemed to be really worried about the Knight of Thrain, whose name I can't remember, but
Talia. Nope. That's not right. Taurus.
Lady Taurus. Right?
Lady Taurus, yeah.
The party seemed to be very concerned about that. At that moment, Esri, he thinks that their primary competency is fighting. That's what they've been trained to do together. So, if we've got to fight this one person, with some nice armor, we're fine. But maybe that's wrong meta gaming, but at that moment, I wasn't.
I mean,
he wasn't.
Maybe. I mean, at that point, you guys were still level 2, I think. And she would be a formidable opponent in a fight, but at the same time, it's very hard. I have found, and I'm sure as a GM you have encountered this as well. It's very hard to overcome the action economy of a one bad guy fight or a one enemy fight. That's a very hard
numbers
thing to
really
overcome.
matter.
Yeah. So there would be a lot of variables. I certainly didn't expect that to turn into a combat encounter. But had it turned into a combat encounter, there would be a lot of variables. There would certainly have been a role for does backup show up, that kind of thing. But with the numbers, I would say it probably is the sort of thing where you guys would have had an even chance, or probably better than that, with the action economy being what it is. Especially considering the number of ways you guys have to, at least temporarily, incapacitate her between things like hold person and that kind of thing that Esri and Ari can do, that she just has to roll badly just once, and that lose a turn, basically.
Right.
And that's pretty crippling in that kind of fight. Yeah.
Funniest,
yeah.
That's going to be a hard one. I mean, there've been lots of moments. Ari giving away his loot for some reason. I mean, it was. I still can't quite tell if it's Ari or Eric who miscalculated that.
I think it's Eric. I think well, because, as a bard, you start out with a musical instrument, and so you obviously don't bother to pay attention to what it costs to get one. So yeah, I think that was Eric didn't think about the value of the object, and yeah, that was, yes, Eric realizing it, I think, is pretty high on my list too. Is the moment Eric goes, "Holy cow!" It's just that was awesome.
I don't know. Is Eric a musician at all? Like, have you ever? Instruments aren't cheap.
He once played the guitar. I don't know if he's kept it up, but he was a guitarist back in college, at least. I believe still has a guitar.
Instruments got the markup.
So you've kind of touched on this a little bit, but Richard's question continues about essentially, in what ways has Esri developed in the way you expected when you created him, as opposed to in other directions? And you kind of touched on this with not expecting him to be the one who was divisive in the way that he has been. But yeah.
Yeah. I think, definitely that. His place in the group just has been something very, very much a discovery as go along. His charisma, lack thereof, whether or not he's charismatic, has been interesting. I think I'm treading that line, or towing that line. What is it? I don't know. Walking that line. What is the phrase?
I
think I'm doing a good
towing.
Good dare job there of I feel like of trying to have a balance, because he is innately charismatic. He's just not practiced, and it's not his preference for how to go about encounters. And so, trying to play him as, okay, he is capable of putting together a sentence. He just doesn't really like doing it. Has been an interesting and somewhat difficult thing to do. This isn't really character development, I guess, but his place in combat has been it's been interesting. I am trying to embody this life and death thing. So I mean, his spell loadout every day is some mix of healing and damage, and really not much else. I had been taking utility at the beginning, but that just feels wrong for him, to me.
Yeah.
So it's stuff like that. Just trying to figure out where he really is with his abilities, because he's not really a druid. Like, he's got druidic abilities, but he doesn't follow tradition. He doesn't have a teacher. So there's a lot where he's not a druid. So some of the stuff, like, he transformed into a cat to try to talk to Cal. In hindsight, I played it, I think, to where, he didn't like it. Like, I guess I can do that. I don't want to do that. Animals aren't his thing. Plants are his thing. He doesn't want to be a plant, really. So it's it's interesting trying to figure out really what his place in all of the mechanics, honestly.
Yeah.
Has been interesting.
Can you wild shape into a plant? Is that an option? Or any of the plant monsters, maybe?
I don't think you can wild shape into one.
I guess you could polymorph into one.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I mean, you can definitely wild magic yourself into a fern.
That's true. That's true.
So
we have seen that happen in our home game multiple times, remarkably enough.
Just there can't be too many advantages to becoming a plant, right? Like, disguising yourself as a plant, maybe, but like actually being one is just a disadvantage.
Yeah, that doesn't seem. I can't think of why you would, other than, as you say, as a disguise. I guess you would become pretty impervious to a lot of things if you turned into the right kind of plant. Survival in a hostile environment. Some plants are pretty good at that.
Yeah, but usually when you transform into something, you take on their intellect,
Yeah,
And plants
that's
don't
true.
have much of an intellect typically. That would be hard to
really. Yeah,
operate as.
yeah, that would be rough. Speaking of not being so much into animals, Laura would like to know, what does Cal have to do to gain Esri's friendship?
Oh, so Cal's an animal, so it's not, in Esri's mind, even a candidate for friendship. I don't think Esri is actively hostile towards Cal.
Right.
It was just an animal, a very large animal that became a housemate without discussion or options. So, you know, he's not really happy about it. He's not an animal guy, like I said. Yeah, I don't think he's in any way opposed to somebody having a pet. It's just like this is not a puppy.
Right.
This is
and it's not being treated for the most part like a pet.
True. And so, like,
yeah,
some of it is also just mechanically, like, Cal is literally part of Shade's class, right?
Sure.
So it's not it's there's a little more freedom to just play with it. It's not like Cal's going away or anything.
Right.
Esri can do is going to make Cal go away. So there's a little more freedom to play it in certain ways. But I don't know. Have you ever met a person? I mean, I guess you are this person sort of with cats. You know, you're just not a cat person. You're not going to be a cat person.
Right.
You're not actively hostile towards cats. You just don't want them in your house.
Right.
So I think that's where he's at. It's like I think certainly if he sees Cal being useful in some way, he'll appreciate that. But yeah, he's treating Cal like an animal, and it's weird that everyone else seems to not treat him like an animal.
Right.
From his point of view.
All right. Sure. Yeah, I think I've said this before. I frequently in my head see Esri doing the John Krasinski camera look from The Office of everyone else is treating this bizarre situation as if it was perfectly every day. What's happening?
Right. We need to keep a low profile. Rainbow Panther. Cool. Oh, it's stolen? Oh, from the houses, you say? Oh, you were seen doing it.
Like a walk.
I see. Uh-huh. And to be fair, he is the only one trying to help that situation.
Yeah.
He did it a little awkwardly at one, he may have hurt that situation as well. I'm not saying he's good at it, but he's trying.
Sure. All right. Also from Laura. Speaking of the most recent episode, why was why was Esri against telling the parents?
I don't think he was distinctly against telling the parents. He wasn't necessarily just like anti that. He didn't care to do it. I mean, first of all, he only knew one parent.
Yeah.
Or even where to go about finding one parent. And he doesn't want to talk to her. I mean, if you want to like truly logic it out, I think there is some question about, and this isn't really in character, but just like question about if someone is in potential danger, you've got to weigh the difference between what is the benefit between telling them, like what is the reaction going to be if they think they're in this danger versus how much danger are they truly in at all, right? And hey, stop. I think he's ready for dinner. So, I I'm trying to think. You know, it's the sort of classic government response to, are there aliens, right? Well, okay, what are you going to do about it if there are aliens? Nothing, right. Or panic. And panic is definitely worse because you know, you're not going to be doing anything productive about it. So, you know, he thought, sorry, I'm being distracted by dog.
No, sorry.
Ilya,
your animal
Ilya and her family, were likely, like he said this, they're likely to be the types that are prepared anyway. Telling them, fine, that's probably not going to hurt. It may only help to a certain degree. He doesn't have any. He doesn't have much love for Donnabella's mother, so, and he already knows she's not someone of means or training, and he just doesn't know like what are they going to do except leave town, and he doesn't.
Right.
You know, that's dangerous in itself.
Sure. And
what he's thinking is not that we need to warn the parents. What he's thinking is we need to fix this problem.
Yeah.
And so that's where his mind is at. It's just that it's not necessarily a bad thing to do. I don't know if it's any good, and my efforts are best spent elsewhere. That's all.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're creating variables because what are their reactions going to be? You know.
And nope. There are. We'll see. In the latest episode, I'm trying to remember. They did.
The latest episode is.
They did ask.
Getting ready.
Ilya's
to go.
parents did ask.
Yeah.
Who are these people? Okay. Well, now you set up a completely new variable, because now you've potentially made someone capable mad at someone who yeah. And you know, this is also Esri's thing. Like the variables are the problem. We got to control those. That's an excellent way of putting it. It's like.
Yeah, have you just unleashed Liam Neeson on the Stormhammers?
And good, you started a war with the Stormhammers, and we were already on their radar. So now,
yep,
yeah. So it could be complicated.
Sure. Laura also. This is not exactly a question so much as a request. Laura also says, "Please don't poison Tommel."
Yeah, I'm gonna poison Tommel. You gotta
what?
You gotta work on your radar. Like your judge of character. Either your judge of character is poor, or like it's spot on, and your calibration is, you know, you gotta just like go 90 degrees from the way you're pointed. This way lies danger.
Yeah. What I mean, so Esri was pretty clearly in favor of let's go solve the problem because it's not just going to go away.
Yeah.
So is Esri's instinct here to fight?
Certainly not openly. I mean, and we talked about that. It's like, okay, if we're gonna bring people, then we better bring people to do the job, right? Like we're bringing people to fight. It's not so much that he thinks it's fight. I mean, he's a poison guy, right? That's a legitimate thing, and he's thinking that there's probably a spearhead here. That's the wrong term. There's probably a serpent's head that cut it off, and this particular problem goes away. Our problem might not go away, but the problem with the kids does. And we can handle our problem, or we can at least attempt to, but it's really the kids that are involved that that's what he's thinking about solving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Speaking of your poisons, Eric wonders, what does Esri plan for a distribution chain for his wares?
I mean, at the moment, it's Geralt is the distribution. He's very new at the entrepreneurial concept. So plans are almost non-existent. He's really just thinking of he wants to mess with the stuff he wants to mess with, and it's a bad idea to do that at home. And if he can make some money, and it also, it grew out of the idea that they need to have better connections for better safety. Mm-hmm. So this is a way to, Geralt will say sometimes acquaintance or a fence of convenience. Mm-hmm. And now it's, it's a little more official. His thought is if he can get Geralt to rely on him, then if someone threatens him, well, Geralt now has an interest in that. Who knows if that will be true, but that's the idea. So it's not.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Geralt is at least better. Is obviously substantially better connected to the underworld, in a very different way. Like Pog's connections with the Swords of Karn are a very, very different kind of problem solving than what Geralt would be able to provide.
Right, and it's more along the lines of Esri's preference.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Eric also asks, why does Esri remain loyal to the tree mates? I like that. When they keep getting him into troubling situations.
The post-oak mates. That's a Texas joke for some of you. Well, that's a deep question. And it's a good question to be asking, and I'm glad it's being asked, because honestly, it is the question that Esri is working on. I think chapter 1, the theme of that was getting to that question. Not because it started with an assumption. I'm with these people, and it was just assumption that this was our life now. And a lot of the things that Esri thought he was doing, thought he was protecting, those have gone away. And he has found that he still wants to stay. And so now that he has come to that conclusion that, okay, even though I don't want these things to be happening, it looks like they're going to happen, and I guess I'm just getting on board. So now the question really is, why? What does that mean for me? Mm-hmm. Esri speaking here. Why my logic and my feelings don't really add up. And so, yeah, I think that's where he is. I don't think there's an answer to that for him yet, because of everything he doesn't understand about love and family and community. All these things that he has just very negative thoughts about. He is still, not human, but human. And he's going to have to be working through all of that still. And it's going to be messy because you don't, the pendulum's here and it's swung and corrected, but now it's going to, now it's overcorrecting. And there's a lot of this, like, how do I be this new thing that I guess I've agreed to be? Well, I don't know how to be that. And so you're gonna, that's not gonna be clean either.
No, certainly. Well, and it's, you look at Ari obviously has sort of always seen himself that way, and Shade as that kind of thing, as the adventurer, and Shade and Pog have always wanted to be. And so what we're kind of seeing is Shade and Pog kind of dive headfirst in without really looking at it, and just trust that we'll figure it out. Whereas we're seeing Esri trying to sort of figure out what first. Yeah,
and not getting a lot of opportunities.
No, I
guess we had a longish downtime, so there's been some time for reflection.
Yeah.
And then, then you build it up, and then you put the stress on it and see if what you built is correct. And guess what? It's not. Well, you gotta, some stuff's got to knock down. You'll see what survives, and then build on top of that again. This is foreshadowing in case I'm being real subtle. Dear audience, we've recorded a couple more episodes. Foreshadowing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost a perfect metaphor for the city of Stormreach, which is ruins on ruins on ruins. Yeah. It's poignant. Poignant.
I meant that.
So I asked this of Eric, and I'm curious from you, because I know one of the things that you and I talked about when we were having our initial conversations about this campaign and what we liked in campaigns is one of the things that you brought up was you really liked the setting as a character. That you really liked places where we could really dive into a specific setting, as opposed to a more globe-trotting kind of Firefly-esque adventure, which is one of the options we had discussed. So I'm curious, this is something I asked Eric, and I know you bring a very different perspective in not having, read Eberron stuff as obsessively as Eric and I have, but what so far is the thing that about Stormreach or about Zendrick or about Eberron that you, and I mean this as RA, not Esri, that you find the most, like, I really want to pick at that. I want to dive into that more.
Despite myself, politics tends to always intrigue me. So the relationships between different factions, I think there's a ton there that both I and Esri don't understand, as far as, okay, we're dealing with the Stormhammers right now. What does that actually mean in terms of the macro of the city? What? Because it could mean a lot of things. It could be really damaging for us. Maybe if everyone hates the Stormhammers and we're seen to be working with them, that affects our reputation. Obviously, we already have a small relationship with a couple rival gangs. So how does that play into it? Are they going to be mad at us? Are the Stormhammers actually, pulling all the strings? And so really we need to tread very lightly. Or are they a house of cards and we could take them down if we play our cards right. And so
whatever card game that is.
A lot of that is very intriguing, and we're definitely finding our way into those different relationships. The underbelly of the city, I think, as RA is also definitely, it looks like there's
physically or metaphorically.
Oh,
like literally, under the city, or
the
like
literal
the criminal underbelly.
I'm not
okay.
I'm not often not a big dungeon crawler in that sense, but I like a good dungeon crawl. So seems like there's potential there to, to spend a few sessions. Really, we sort of just went in and out. It seems like there's probably a lot to be discovered under there, or a lot of potential for what could happen under there.
Oh yeah. Oh, I mean, even I don't know. I think I said this in maybe talking to Colin last week, but even in that little section, I thought that once Donabella clued you guys in that there was another group down here, I thought you would follow them. And so I actually thought you guys were going to go deeper into that little complex following Tommel. I anticipated the confrontation with Tommel happening in a very different setting. And And so when it became clear you guys were quite responsibly mostly interested in grabbing Donabella and getting her out, which makes perfect sense. It's the logical thing to do. That was where I introduced a problem so that it would be exciting to watch you get out.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Esri has a very strong survival instinct. And
Sure.
so that's driving him a lot right now. As abilities grow, that may diminish some because you're more confident in what you can survive. But yeah, in his mind, the only reason they were down there was to find this girl. They found her. They are bigger than her. There's more of you than her. Let's go. We can solve this problem if only we work together. Yet.
Being in the watch party for that episode, there was definitely a lot of the audience that was also going, pick the girl up.
It's like, I knocked her on the head once. That is absolutely an applicable solution here.
Right.
I got 6 healing spells. She'll be fine.
Oh, that's really funny. Yeah. Cool. I was curious, and there will definitely be opportunity to dig into more of the underside of the city, I expect, in the future. So, cool. Well, thank you all for watching. Thank you for the questions submissions. If you want to submit questions, you can do so in the comments down below or over on our Discord, which you can also find a link to in below, along with all of our various social media presences down there in the good old description. If you've liked this, give us a like, give us a subscribe. All praise to the almighty algorithm. In the meantime, this has been Khyber Shards. I'm Philip.
I'm all right.
Thanks for rolling with us.